Prior to the hearing of the injunction application, much of the conversation centered around Chief Justice Gertrude Arba Isaba Sakitokonu, once the head of the judiciary, but suspended from her role. On Wednesday morning, flanked by her spouse, Justice Tokonu made her way to the Supreme Court, this time as a plaintiff seeking, among other things, an order to stop the work of the Committee of Inquiry and the warrant order of suspension. She was therefore going to face a 5-member panel of justices chaired by acting Chief Justice Bafo Boni. When the case was called, Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Remsai prayed the courts to exclude members of the Committee of Inquiry probing the petition of the CJ's removal as defendants of the case. But lawyer for the CJ, Godfrey Dame, maintained that some of the reliefs being sought had mentioned them. The court agreed with the former Attorney General and overruled the objection. The Deputy AG again moved for the supplementary affidavit filed by the CJ to support her application to be dismissed. He argued that issues she had raised ought not to be in the public domain as they were enshrined in Article 1468 of the Constitution. This article talks about the work of the Committee of Inquiry being confidential. The court this time upheld Remsai's argument and struck out the supplementary affidavit, adding that the affidavit in support was sufficient to make her case. After hearing submissions from both parties regarding the injunction application, the 5-member panel of justices unanimously dismissed the Chief Justice's application, stating that it was without merit. Former Attorney General Godfrey Dame was not pleased with the outcome.
I'm quite surprised that the Supreme Court will more or less acceding to the expectation of such violations against the highest judicial official. The issues are far reaching and they actually pinch on matters which affect the independence of Ghana's judiciary, the security of tenure of judges and all. But if the Supreme Court, for whatever reasons, does not seem to take that view, well, so be it. I think that in future, the whole nation will get to know.
He maintained that the suspended Chief Justice will continue to assert her rights.
She knows what is due process. She knows what is constitutional rights. And I think that's what she's asking for. And how can it be correct that a judge who sat on 2 matters, of which she also sat, be called as witness in a petition against her, and that same judge be made the chairman of the committee that is supposed to inquire into the petitions against the Chief Justice.
The full judgments by the Apex Court will be made available on June 12th. What does this mean for the entire impeachment process of the Chief Justice? Well, in a nutshell, it means that the Committee of Inquiry probing the petition to remove the Chief Justice will continue unabated until a final determination is done.
And let's get reaction to this very development. And the Majority Leader, Mahama Yariga, has asked the suspended Chief Justice, Gertrude Tokonu, to accept the procedure to remove her from office. He posits the Constitution is clear on the removal of a Chief Justice, which according to him is being followed. Take a listen.
The leadership of Parliament met with the media to outline what to expect in this meeting of Parliament and also to address other issues of national concern. The Deputy Minority Leader, Patricia Appiagyei, expressed worry over the attempts to remove the Chief Justice, among others.
We were a bit alarmed by actions threatening judicial independence, particularly attempts to remove the Chief Justice and pack the Supreme Court with partisan nominees.
So far, I have not heard anybody specifically say that this part of the process is not provided for in the Constitution. Somebody says, I want the hearing to be held in public. I want a transparent process. Did the Constitution say a transparent process? Did the Constitution say a process in camera? If the Constitution said a process in camera, when you are being vetted in this Parliament and you are being appointed as the Chief Justice, why didn't you say that I am accepting the job subject to me not accepting the procedure for removing me? If you had told us at that time, would we have appointed you as Chief Justice? It comes as a package. You cannot accept to enjoy the perks of the office of Chief Justice, and then the procedure by which you will be removed, you say that you will not accept that one. Where were you when you were being appointed Chief Justice?
The Deputy Minority Leader also wants a review of the Mahama Care finances as well as publication of presidential travels.
Well, away from that, President John Mahama has outlined the comprehensive vision for Ghana's anticipated 24-hour economic policy, describing it as both a destination and a program crucial for the national reset. And the announcement came during a pivotal meeting in Accra concerning the rollout of the 24-hour plus program and the accelerated export development framework.
Addressing attendees, President Mahama clarified that the 24-hour economy as a destination represents a future state where Ghana achieves exceptionally high levels of productivity and capital utilization.
We'll have to operate in multiple shifts across day and night, maximizing the return on infrastructure, on human resources and innovation. This idea captured the public imagination during the 2024 campaign and it remains at the core of our drive towards full employment and inclusive economic growth.
Beyond being a future aspiration, the 24-hour economy also functions as a program demanding a deep and deliberate restructuring of productive economy.
We must re-engineer our production systems from top to bottom, boosting volumes and diversity and shifting from reliance on raw materials towards the export of value-added products. An effective catalyst for the 24-hour economy policy is a stable macroeconomic environment, but the program goes beyond macroeconomic stability and focuses sharply on production, enterprise, jobs, and exports. At its core is an integrated value chain transformation approach. This approach addresses structural bottlenecks not in isolation, but comprehensively through infrastructure, finance, land systems, logistics, and skills development.
The 24-hour economy is aimed at significantly boosting economic activity, productivity, and job creation by encouraging businesses and public services to operate around the clock.
Let's still stay with the presidency, as the President John Mahama has revoked the appointment of Anne Sansa Dali from the board of the National Health Insurance Authority, NHIA, following public backlash over her medical credentials. Although the letter did not specify reasons for Dali's removal, it is widely believed to be connected to public and professional criticism over her representation as a medical doctor, despite not holding a valid license. In a letter issued by the Office of the President, the government named Professor Dr. Ernest York as a replacement with instructions for the relevant authorities to expedite his swearing in. Professor Ernest York, a seasoned physician and former Greater Accra Regional Chair of the Ghana Medical Association, has been widely welcomed as a competent and reputable replacement. Well, we'll follow up on matters arising regarding this very replacement and finish with updates in our subsequent bulletins. If you just tuned in, you're watching the morning news here on TV3, the first bulletin of the day right here on this network. You can also get interactive with us. We are live on Facebook. Let's know what you make of stories that I've aired so far. Suspended Chief Justice, among others. Engage us with your comments, opinions, and reservations, and we surely read them and share them to the rest of the world. And now, let's stay on our campaign. That's the campaign against Red 225. And because of the executive of the National Youth Authority says the campaign against substance abuse is still very much on, despite a media quiet. Speaking to a yet to be aired interview, Osman Ayarga said they are focusing on rehabilitation for victims and provide skills for them.
The campaign is in various parts. There's the advert part of the campaign, which is the media side of the campaign. There's also the off-media part of the campaign. There's the rehabilitation, there's the consensus building, there's the training, and it's in various levels. So the first phase we did was the launch of the campaign, which was what we invited all media houses to be part of. The next thing we did was a street campaign, where we went to Odududu, we had a Legon car park, etc. And we even went to Tamale to have the street campaign. Now, the next phase is we're going in with the security agencies to try as much as possible to clamp down on most of these so-called ghettos. Because in other neighborhoods, the youth have taken it upon themselves to start attacking most of these so-called ghettos where they believe that there's a trade and there's a consumption or there's a sale of most of these illicit drugs. So we are partnering with Ghana Police to make sure that the right agencies step in and do the proper arrest, because most of the time it ends up with people being lynched, people being attacked. But there's also the third phase, which has to do with helping the addicts, because they get to a certain stage that they don't need to be stopped, but they need to be helped. You just don't go by telling them to stop, they need to be helped. And in that help, we're partnering with some doctors from the Kolebu Hospital, some mental oriented doctors, or some doctors who are biased towards mental health to have partnered with us so that we can see how we can also help most of these young people in terms of rehabilitation. Now, when you're done with the rehabilitation also, we're looking at how we can also admit them into the National Apprenticeship Program, help them get a skill, help them get a job, so that they can be that proper cohesion back into the social infrastructure.
And now, in a bold declaration aimed at currency speculators and the wider investor community, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. John Mahama, says the city's recent appreciation is neither temporary nor speculative, but a reflection of real reforms and solid macroeconomic fundamentals. Addressing investors at the AFDB annual meetings in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, Dr. Mahama reaffirmed the government's currency market has entered a new era of anchored stability, backed by policy discipline, growing reserves, and improved confidence.
The central bank says the era of chronic cedi depreciation is over, and that those betting against the local currency are likely to be disappointed. Speaking at a private investor roundtable on the sidelines of the African Development Bank annual meetings, Governor Dr. John Mahama revealed that the cedi has depreciated by 21.5% so far this year, reversing a sharp decline of 19.2% recorded in 2024. He credited the rebound to strong foreign exchange inflows from exports, particularly gold, as well as improved reserve accumulation, a current account surplus of over $2 billion, and tighter enforcement in the forex market. In a pointed message, the governor declared, to those holding dollars in anticipation of a return to old patterns of depreciation, I will say this plainly: the market has changed, the narrative has changed, and the policy environment has changed. Dr. Mahama also highlighted the role of the Gold for Reserves program and emphasized that the Bank of Ghana will continue to defend currency stability through transparent, data-driven policies.
And now the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Mahama, says Ghana has attained energy generation stability, and in line with this has directed the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, to deploy 200 new transformers across major urban centers in a bid to strengthen the national power distribution network. Speaking at the opening of the 2025 West African Mining and Power Expo, WAMPET in Accra, he stated that the deployment is part of a broader strategy to enhance electricity delivery and ensure greater reliability.
I'm happy to note that despite the challenges we inherited, recent reports that I get shows that power generation has been very stable, and we've even begun exporting some power. What we need to do is to continue to improve the transmission network and the distribution network. In this regard, I've granted approval to ECG as a matter of urgency to inject about 200 new transformers in our major capital cities in order to ensure that we do not just generate power, but we're able to transmit that power and distribute that power to consumers in an effective and efficient manner.
John Mahama is the Minister of Energy and Green Transitions. And over 128,000 nurses and midwives across Ghana are to withdraw their services in the next 10 days. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association says it is disappointed with the government delay in implementing the assigned conditions of service. President of the association, Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, was addressing a news conference here in Accra.
In May 2024, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, GRNMA, signed a collective agreement with the government through the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. The agreement was designed to enhance the welfare of nurses and midwives nationwide, including a 20% allowance for those who accept postings to deprived areas. But a year on, the implementation has stalled. Despite several meetings and follow-ups with relevant ministries, the association says no concrete steps have been taken. Frustration is mounting, and the association is now warning of a nationwide strike starting next week.
We are nurses and midwives. We know our responsibility. We know our call to duty, and we are ready to do it. But we cannot sit aloof when our collective agreements, which will motivate us to work, which will take us in terms of transporting us to work, which will take us in terms of feeding us, which will take us supporting our families, it's not given. We cannot just sit back and allow it to happen. We are not the only public sector workers. We have seen other collective agreements being implemented within the last 5 months. We have seen them. So why is ours not being implemented? Is it that our worth is not appreciated by our employer?
The president says members will begin an industrial action in phases, from wearing red bands to the eventual withdrawal of all services if demands are not met.
2nd and 3rd June 2025, wearing of red armbands or headbands in all health facilities across the country. 4th to 8th June 2025, withdrawal of outpatient department services, or what we normally call OPD services. 9th June 2025 onwards, withdrawal of all services.
We asked whether the association has petitioned the National Labour Commission ahead of the planned strike.
We know the efforts that the National Labour Commission makes and what it does. We are sending copies of these documents to them. At the end of the day, it takes the Ministry of Finance to get this implemented as quickly as possible.
As tensions rise, health facilities across the country are bracing for the impact. The coming days will be crucial in determining whether the government acts or if the country will face a full-blown health crisis.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health has called on the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to reverse their decision to embark on a planned industrial action, citing ongoing engagements and the potential danger to patient care across the country. The ministry expressed shock and disappointment over the association's press conference, where the association directed its members to commence a series of strikes over the delayed implementation of their conditions of service. The Ministry of Health acknowledged that although the revised conditions of service were scheduled to take effect in 2024 under the previous administration, the implementation had unfortunately been delayed. To address this, the ministry explained that both parties had, during earlier engagement, agreed to establish a joint committee made up of representatives from the association, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Finance to fast-track the process. Well, we'll see how this very implementation pans out in ensuing days, but trust TV3 to finish with updates in our subsequent bulletins. And in more news this morning, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Dr. Alfred Oku-Vanderpoy, says all is set for the reopening of the Ghana Embassy in Washington, D.C., assuring Ghanaians in the U.S. of professional services devoid of corruption. Addressing the media and Parliament, he said members of the majority on the Foreign Affairs Committee have information that similar corrupt practices are taking place in other embassies.
We are happy that Thursday, tomorrow, the embassy will reopen to serve the public. When we see corruption, when we see an act that is against the resetting of this country, that we will condone it. So we support the minister for all the actions that he has taken. And when the embassy reopens, the public will be served without an iota of corruption. Members of this committee in the near future, very near future, will go to the embassy to ascertain matters for ourselves, that the public is being served with the highest level of satisfaction.
Dr. Oku-Vanderpoy, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. On that note, we end the morning news. For more news updates, if you want to log on to our website, it's 3news.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, TV3.gh, for more news updates. My name is Josh Quinnin. In a world where you can be anything, just be kind. It costs nothing to be kind. Thanks for watching. Always a pleasure coming your way. Good morning.